Taylor has a feel to be a person who now speaks more than one language. I mean, I know, like you've got like a little tiny bit of French in you, right?
I used to speak fluent French,
but not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore.
Okay, so that fell off. You went back to 1.
Yep.
Now you're back to 2. I've been at 2 my whole life. My whole
Saxel?
I actually also speak your language too.
My whole adult life, I've known this new language, this global language, since I was a young man.
Yeah,
because I talk like this all the fucking time.
Yeah, you really do.
I go hard on the Parentese.
You really do.
Are you familiar with Parentese there, Brian?
I'm not actually.
Parentese is a global language, global study finds. I fucking love this article, dude. It's the cutest thing in the world.
It is fucking cute.
So
in the actual Times article, there's little sound bites.
Oh yeah, I could do it.
That you can.
I can do it for you.
I think I've heard about this on TikTok.
You might have.
Oh god.
If people are wondering what the fuck is Parentese, it is a global language, according to this global study. This is from the New York Times. We've all seen it. We've all cringed at it. We've all done it ourselves. Talk to a baby like it was, a baby. So how I talk to Donut like every fucking day. Oh, hello, baby. Like that. That's a language. You say in your little voice, lilting like a rapturously accommodating Walmart employee. Baby is utterly baffled by your unintelligible warble and your shamelessly doofus grin, but baby so cute. Oh, the baby so cute. See, he responds to it. Oh, who's a good baby who's so cute?
Oh,
little Donnie,
you're so cute.
Regardless,
yeah,
you like that.
That dude. To be totally honest, dude, that has made me cringe from you for so long until I had a kid.
The way I talk to Donut.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Really?
And how I've seen you talk to babies,
dude. The way I talk to your baby.
Yeah.
Is I fucking go hard in the paint on
I
fucking talking to her like that.
I've always found it cute.
I love it.
Even when you do it, Jerry, I'm like, that's so nice.
I haven't actually read the. I didn't read the full article yet. But I've known this. And maybe they go into this in the article, but the reason we do that is not is actually like an innate thing. We speak to babies in these very like widely varied pitches, like high and low and high and low. And I think the biologically the reason we do that is to like teach children. It's something to do with like teaching children or helping children learn like the variances of like emotion or something like that.
Like
yeah,
inflection.
It helps. It helps where they start to associate like the expressions. Well, it's to do with like language development as well. So
yes,
like,
language development.
Seeing you like produce sounds using and like moving your mouth in certain ways, but also like the way that you put an expression on your face and how sounds and expressions are linked together.
Yes,
and so like that kind of creates the like foundation for like understanding how to express an emotion.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What was really, really interesting from that article was that, I mean, basically, what I found fascinating was like, anytime that we can find something that like destroys all these like barriers that we've built up around each other in terms of like whether it's like culture or race or religion or like all these things that sort of like separate people around the world, that this is something that goes, hey, but at the foundation of it all, we're all the fucking same. This is something that we do regardless of what your language is, regardless of what your culture is. We look at babies and we all go in whatever fucking language or whatever however you speak.
Yeah.
And they did a test where they gave people a bunch of sound bites and said, is this person talking to an adult or to a baby? And they and so like so the person that was getting this whatever language the person doing the test speaks doesn't matter, because they were given several sound bites in different languages. So and then regardless of whether they know what the language is, they don't even know what the person's saying. They can just tell. It was something like 75% accurate.
Yeah, I feel like that would be easy.
Yeah. So regardless of whether it helps to know it, researchers recently determined that this sing-songy baby talk, more technically known as Parentese, seems to be nearly universal to humans around the world. In the most wide-ranging study of its kind, more than 40 scientists helped to gather and analyze 1,615 voice recordings from 410 parents on 6 continents and in 18 languages from diverse communities, rural and urban, isolated and cosmopolitan, internet savvy and off the grid, from hunter-gatherers in Tanzania to urban dwellers in Beijing. The results, published recently in the journal Nature Human Behavior, showed that in every one of these cultures, the way parents spoke and sang to infants differed from the way they communicated with adults. And that those differences were profoundly similar from group to group.
I feel like, guys, wasn't there this like moment in time, maybe like 5 or 10 years ago, where like it was popular in like early childhood education to say like, don't speak to your kids like that. Like, speak to them if you want them to develop.
Different. That's a scene from Meet the Fockers.
No.
I think it is.
It actually is.
But yes, but
Robert De Niro says, no, don't speak to him like a baby. Show him math flashcards.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But that came from like, that was like a caricature of like that moment in time where that like was becoming like
no. This is a real thing. So here's where the delineation like kind of breaks there. The way we speak to babies, it's imperative that we talk to babies like this. The way I speak to Hudson, it's imperative that I speak to Hudson the same way I'd speak to my sister.
And how old's Hudson?
5 years old.
Right.
You know, like a toddler, like a toddler that's walking around and talking and like having thoughts and like trying to engage in conversation.
Yeah.
Don't talk to a fucking toddler like, hey, you little buddy boy.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? You want to get up on my shoulders?
Yeah, you gotta go.
Hello,
sir.
Like, what's up, dude? You want to get on my shoulders?
No. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I'm flabbergasted by your emotional range of expressions right now.
Yeah, exactly. Quote, we tend to speak in this higher pitch, high variability, like, oh, hello, you're a baby. Said Courtney Hilton, a psychologist at Haskins Laboratories at Yale University, and a principal author of the study. Cody Moser, a graduate student studying cognitive science at the University of California, and the other principal author added, quote, when people tend to produce lullabies or tend to talk to their infants, they tend to do so in the same way. The findings suggest that baby talk and baby song serve a function independent of cultural and social forces. They lend a jumping off point for future baby research and, to some degree, tackle the lack of diverse representation in psychology. To make cross-cultural claims about human behavior requires studies from many different societies, and now there is a big one. Quote, I'm probably the author with the most papers on this topic until now, and this is just blowing my stuff away, said Greg Bryant, a cognitive scientist at the University of California, who was not associated with the new research. Quote, everywhere you go in the world where people are talking to babies, you hear these sounds. Sound is used throughout the animal kingdom to convey emotion and signal information, including incoming danger and sexual attraction. Such sounds display similarities between species. A human listener can distinguish between happy and sad noises made by animals, from chickadees and alligators to pigs and pandas.
Jer, if you were going to warn a baby about some sort of impending danger, how would you do that?
Oh, no. The danger's coming.
Oopsie whoopsie, the house is on fire. Come on, time to go. I'd be like, get the fuck out. Get out.
That's pretty good.
Scientists have long argued that the sounds that humans make with their babies serve a number of important developmental and evolutionary functions. As Samuel Mayer, a psychologist and director of the music lab at Haskins Laboratories, who conceived the new study, noted, solitary human babies are really bad at their job of staying alive. The strange things we do with our voices when staring at a newborn not only help us survive, but teach language and communication. For instance, Parentese can help some infants remember words better, and it allows them to piece together sounds with mouth shapes, which gives sense to the chaos around them. Also, lullabies can soothe a crying infant, and a higher pitched voice can hold their attention better. You can push, quote, you can push air through your vocal tract, create these tones and rhythms, and it's like giving the baby an analgesic. But in making these arguments, scientists, mostly in the Western developed countries, have largely assumed that parents across cultures modify their voices when talking to infants. Quote, that was a risky assumption. said Casey Lou Williams, a psychologist and director of the Baby Lab at Princeton University. God, that would be so fun working at the Baby Lab.
Oh my god, guys, it's crazy when Kyla talks to Isaiah. Like when she does a high pitched voice, because like she can do a high pitched voice way better than I can.
Yeah, right.
And she just gets better results.
Yes. Well, it's like
Really?
It's and like very noticeably.
It's kind of like well, I hired a dog trainer when Bridie and I got Bigby years ago, and one of the things that he said to us was like, "Look, I'm not trying to be sexist, but the reality is that he's going to listen to Jeremy far more than he's going to listen to you, Bridie, and the reason is because Jeremy's like very masculine, booming, sexually attractive voice is going to be more assertive and
more sexually attractive.
That's why he keeps humping you, Jeremy. And
More
I was like,
alpha.
oh, this makes so much. But it is. There's more of like an alpha sort of like tone. And so he literally said to Bridie, he was like, look, when you're taking him for walks, because he was like fucking her shoulder up. He was like, when you're taking him for walks, lower your octave, drop your octave down, and like try to be more booming with your voice. And it was miraculous how much that worked with him. Like, because
Bridie was like, baby, baby, go, baby, go.
I wonder if babies can also sense the authenticity in which you did it. So Taylor, earlier when you did your first impression, like imagine you doing that now that you have a kid versus previous to when you had a kid. Would you feel like baby talk was more unnatural for you before you had Zaya?
I just wouldn't really do it.
Right, exactly. So then when you start doing
how is that possible? You wouldn't really do it. I do it all the time, honestly, to every baby. I don't even know the baby. I'm like, oh,
honestly, before I had Zaya, I really didn't find babies cute.
Oh man,
or anything really. I just kind of thought they were all ugly.
I know we did that test.
Oh
we know
God.
You're a psychopath.
Can you just replay that right there for a second? Take that back. Holy fuck!
So
they are
like
all ugly.
I wonder.
Have you ever seen that episode of Seinfeld where they go to you gotta see the baby, and then they show her the baby, and they're like, oh my god.
Do you think
it is funny how much you text the two of us, going like, hey guys, like, do you want to? Did you ever want to just eat a baby, and then you send us a video of her like fucking trying to suck her toes?
Yeah, because that's my baby, and that's because I know you guys think she's cute. But if you didn't, then I wouldn't send.
But wait, so
but if we didn't think she was cute, you wouldn't know.
Yeah, I would. You'd tell me. You wouldn't tell me?
No,
I'd probably tell you.
I wouldn't have the heart.
Why not?
Have you told our friend who has an ugly baby that their baby's ugly?
Don't say that out loud. No, but that's because,
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a different relationship.
It's a different relationship.
But Taylor, so did Kyla?
Oh fuck, dude. That's embedded. That's embedded. That's in the internet forever.
Guys, everybody has that friend.
Yes, everybody has a friend that has a hideous, monstrous baby.
And
although here's the thing, those super ugly babies,
they grow
oftentimes,
yeah,
they grow up to be super cute.
when they're 4, they're like the most adorable little thing.
That's the story of the ugly duckling.
Yeah.
But so did Kyla speak to babies with that baby voice?
Oh, Kyla
before
did
she had Zaya.
for sure.
Before she had Zaya?
Yeah.
No, Kyla had no time for her babies. Period.
Really?
What?
Yeah, that surprises me.
But
I would have.
like you know, a baby. Someone's like, "Here's my new baby." Kyla wasn't like, "Oh, coo."
No, Kyla would be like, "Cool."
Oh my god, you guys are evil.
You guys are
No, we have a baby now, and we speak Parentese.
Right,
but yeah. I was gonna say my hypothesis was that she flexed her baby talking muscle more than you, and then maybe that's why it would be more effective. But obviously, like
No,
we know that
she's
it's
just got a female
higher pitch.
higher pitch voice.
Yeah.
The new
Hey,
study.
Kyla, I think that you come across, I know you're listening right now, you come across as the type of person who loves babies. So don't worry.
Yeah,
Even though you're a psychopath like Taylor.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we all think
That's what I thought. I thought
honestly-
Kyla was like I thought Kyla was like constantly like squishing cheeks and
never
poking bellies.
So the difference is that like I've always loved dogs. So when I see dogs, I'm like, oh my god, I fucking love every dog. Every dog I fucking love, and I've always loved, regardless of whether I had a dog or not. Kyla did not. Kyla would always be like, oh yeah, I can intellectually see how that dog is cute to another person.
But then once you got Loki.
But then once we got Loki, she was
Yeah.
like, I'm obsessed with Loki. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
Loki, and Loki is my fucking world.
Mhm.
The new study's acoustic analysis also listed out these worldwide characteristics of baby and adult communication in a way that brought on new questions and realizations. For instance, people tend to try out many different vowel sounds and combinations when talking to babies. Quote, exploring the vowel space,
Yeah,
as
dude.
Mr. Mosier puts it.
Goo goo gaga.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Gee.
I just start making fucking crazy sounds at Zaya and just see what she what she responds to. It's so much fun.
I do this with Rupert.
This happens. This happens to be quite similar to the way that adults sing to each other around the world. Baby talk also closely matches melody of song, the songification of speech, if you'd like. This could potentially point to a developmental source of music. Maybe, quote, listening to music is one of those things that humans are just wired up to do, which is super. That's a fucking cool.
Like Blink-182. Na 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 na
Goo
na
goo ga 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 ga.
na.
But the jury is still out as to how these cross-cultural similarities fit into existing theories of development. Quote, the field going forward will have to figure out which of the things in this laundry list are important for language learning, Dr. Lou Williams said. And that's why this kind of work is so cool. It can spread. So yeah, really, really interesting little article there. And if you're listening to this, you very likely speak more than one language, even if you thought you only spoke one.
I just think it's wonderful because like there are lots of things that like really do separate cultures just inherently because different cultures do things differently. So like when you get to when two cultures are at a place where they would do something in a certain way, one is like, well, we're going to do it this way, and the other one's we're going to do it that way, and that might seem weird to each respective culture for doing it differently. But then, like, if you see somebody, like if you go to the Dingle Park, what is that called? It's not called the Dingle Park. It's called Sanford Fleming Park.
At the Dingle. There's a place in Halifax called the Dingle, which never ceases to make me not laugh. And also there's a giant phallic building that is called the Dingle.
It's called the Dingle. And it's a really nice park. And whenever I go there, there's tons of like South Asian families that go and have picnics there.
Yeah,
and there's always tons and tons of children around. And this makes me go, oh, when you get a whole bunch of different cultures in that park, any culture could go up to any other and go up to a baby or a kid
Parentese
and be like, oh, what? And start making those sounds. And everyone would go, yeah, that makes total sense.
Totally. Yeah.
No one would go, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Thank God you know this now, because before, if you didn't know this and some random group of people were walking up to another random group of people with a baby and they came up to talk to them, you would be threatened. You feel threatened.
You know that what you just said reminded me of something pretty funny though. Did you ever see that TikTok of like?
No.
It's well, you probably saw it on Instagram because Instagram is now just TikTok.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a video. It's like four people standing in a row, and each person behind the other person is kind of blocked from the frame. And so the first person speaks like English, so they say like bicycle. And then they step to the side, and then the next person's Spanish, and bicicleta, and then the next person, and they stand aside, and then the next person says like something else. It says bicycle in their language, and then they step aside, and the German person's like "Skleisting," and then they come back and they do like another word that's like a really pleasant word, and every time the German says it, it's like it's super fucking grating and like aggressive.
Yeah, what would German baby talk sound
I was
like?
German Parentese is like "Slank, stank, and slices, Martin, sie sliced fleissen,"
dude. You know why that is, which is really funny. But the reason why that sounds so out of place is because they're doing it with they're doing it in all the Roman languages, which sound very similar, or Romantic languages, I should say, which are Roman languages, but they sound very similar. And then you get a German, which is not a Roman language, and it's like, oh my god,
it's like accosting to you.
It's funny because like counter to that, like the Dutch language, they it just sounds like they never stop speaking Parentese.
Yes.
Like,
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's so offensive to Dutch people. It's so accurate.
The Swedish cook. Torten. If you guys could learn any language, like if you could like Matrix download any one single language, you only got one chance to learn one. What would it be?
Mandarin.
I think probably the most like practical would be Mandarin, but I think I think German, maybe Italian. Italian's very sexy.
I do Japanese.
Japanese would be cool.
Yeah,
too.
Japanese would be cool.
Yeah. Here's some really wild news. So folks, if you have a Netflix subscription, who doesn't? You might have seen a recent limited series that just dropped from Michael Pollan, based on the name of the same book that he wrote, How to Change Your Mind.
Oh, that's out now?
It is out.
Sweet.
Fantastic.
Paul Stamets is in it, right?
I haven't watched the mushroom episode, the psilocybin
probably
episode,
is.
but I would guess that he's probably
He talks about Paul Stamets in the book.
in the book.
You
yeah.
can't miss the mushroom hat when he's wearing
No,
it.
you can't.
So if you're not familiar with the book or the series, it's about this guy. He's a journalist, Michael Pollan, an author. He's written a lot of books about like food and like how food plays like an integral part of our development and like and culture. And he wrote a book called How to Change Your Mind a few years back that was about his exploration into psychedelic medicines. So the primary ones being LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, and mescaline. And the book and the show are really meant to like shift our perspective on these substances that have been heavily stigmatized due to political reasons from all the way back from in the 1950s, 1960s, and it's coming at the show comes at a really interesting time, especially for the United States right now, because Double Blind, which is a magazine and online resource for psychedelic education. I've taken some of their courses, like trip sitting courses, and they've got a number of different like courses that they offer. They just put out this article about how Colorado psychedelics legalization measure qualifies for November ballot. So the bill would legalize the possession of certain psychedelics and allow for psilocybin treatment centers, but not all advocates are in favor of it. Colorado voters will have the chance to decide on a historic ballot initiative this November to legalize psychedelics and create licensed psilocybin healing centers where people can use the substance for therapeutic purposes. Less than a month after activists turned in signatures for the, quote, Natural Medicine Health Act, the Secretary of State's office on Thursday announced that the campaign had successfully qualified the measure for the ballot. The Natural Medicine Colorado campaign, which is backed by the National New Approach PAC, has submitted about 100,000 more signatures than required for ballot access, a stabilized buffer that was the result of just about 3 months of petitioning. The measure would legalize possession of certain psychedelics, establish a therapeutic model for supervised psilocybin treatment, and provide a pathway for record sealing for prior convictions. So here's what the Natural Medicine Health Act initiative would accomplish if approved by voters. And this is pretty fucking cool. Possession, use, cultivation, and sharing of psilocybin, ibogaine, mescaline, not derived from peyote, DMT, and psilocybin would be legalized for adults 21 and over without an explicit possession limit. There would be no recreational sales component. Under the proposal, the Department of Regulatory Agencies would be responsible for developing rules for a therapeutic psychedelics program where adults 21 and over could visit a licensed healing center to receive treatment under the guidance of a trained facilitator. There would be a two-tiered regulatory model where only psilocybin and psilocin would be permitted for therapeutic use at a licensed health.
Is psilocin like a non-psychedelic derivative or something?
I actually don't know what psilocin is. Let's find out.
'Cause I read something not that long ago that was like it might have been Rolling Stone, maybe the Times, and it was like science's search for all the therapeutic benefits of psilocybin without the trip.
That's really interesting because
I'm like, the trip is the medicine. I think
Psilocin is a substituted tryptamine alkaloid and serotonergic psychedelic substance. So it's it's present in most psychedelic mushrooms together with its counterpart psilocybin. So it's like one of the pieces of magic mushrooms.
The thing that I find really exciting about this is that it reminds me of the conversation that was happening around the legalization of weed in Canada when that happened for recreational use that would then allow for medicinal research to take place.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of these drugs, like there's so many loopholes you have to go through to be able to even use them for scientific research purposes. And therefore, like if it was just easily accessible,
you have to be truly like as a scientist to like want to jump through those loopholes. You've got to have some sort of motivation that is just exterior to your scientific curiosity. You know, because there's just because it's just way easier to go, I'm going to focus my research on something that is going to be easier to do, easier to be funded, easier to get access to the research, and ultimately to be able to
this could potentially
to do my PhD.
Change that in a big way.
Not to mention the stigma that comes with that too. So like if you're a researcher and you're doing work in psychedelics, then all of a sudden it could be very easy for some people in the community to like paint you with this brush, like, oh, that's the psychedelic guy, and like maybe not take you as seriously. And so it is. I could imagine that when you say, Taylor, that they would need some sort of exterior motivation. Yeah, I think that motivation would have to be really high for them to do that, because the sort of like negative consequences, even at least subconsciously in that community, would be probably hard to get.
I think it's changing. I think it'd be changing now, but
for sure,
because Johns Hopkins is like, because Johns Hopkins is one of the driving forces behind the like psychedelic revolution in terms of it being having these massive medicinal benefits. That lends a huge tailwind to the whole thing, so that when somebody says it, even somebody who might not necessarily think, their hypothesis is that it doesn't really do anything, they are like, but Johns Hopkins is on board, and that kind of carries this prestige with it.
So again, to that sentence that I got sidetracked with psilocin. So there would be a two-tiered regulatory model where only psilocybin and psilocin would be permitted for therapeutic use at licensed healing centers until June 2026. After that point, regulators could decide whether to also permit regulated therapeutic use of DMT, ibogaine, and mescaline. And then the other thing in here is that people who have completed their sentence for a conviction related to an offense made legal under the Act would be able to petition the courts for record sealing. If there's no objection from the district attorney, the court would need to automatically clear that record, which is also like a huge part of that entire thing.
That's awesome.
Now, in this article, and this sort of shocked me. They go into all the different places that are also looking at like making some like headway in changing legislation. So this is also interesting. Meanwhile, Colorado Governor Jared Polis was recently asked about the prospect of engaging psychedelics reform in the state, and he acknowledged that advocates are working to accomplish that policy change at the ballot, and also said he supports the idea of decriminalizing the substances. And last month, Polis signed a bill to align state statute to legalize MDMA prescriptions if and when the federal government ultimately permits such use. So the move further with respect of psychedelics, Colorado is far from the only state where reform is advancing. So New Jersey, the leader of the New Jersey Senate filed a bill last month that would legalize the possession, home cultivation, and gifting of psilocybin mushrooms for adults 21 and older. The governor of Connecticut signed a large-scale budget bill in May that includes provisions to set the state up to provide certain patients with access to psychedelic-assisted treatment using substances like MDMA and psilocybin. Maryland's governor recently allowed a bill to go into law without his signature to create a state fund to provide cost-free access to psychedelics like psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine for military veterans suffering from PTSD. A Massachusetts-based company, Bay Staters for National Medicine, is also supporting a statewide reform push. The Maine Senate also approved a bill The governor of Utah signed a bill in March. A Missouri House committee,
that's really interesting.
Oh, there's a couple states here that
Utah is sort of in this like very unique space because of the Mormon population.
Yeah.
And like if you go to Utah, it's unlike any state.
There's like a bunch of dry
There's a whole bunch of
counties
weird
and
rules going on in Utah.
Yeah. A Missouri House committee also held a hearing last month on a GOP-led bill to legalize a wide range of psychedelics for therapeutic use. The Hawaii Senate approved a bill to set up a state working group to study the therapeutic benefits of psilocybin.
I mean, that makes sense.
Oklahoma House of Representatives passed a bill to decriminalize low-level possession of psilocybin. Rhode Island, Oregon, Virginia, California, New Hampshire, and even Texas. Legislation was also enacted by the Texas legislature last year, requiring the state to study a medical risk and benefits of psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine for military veterans in partnership with Baylor College of Medicine.
Strong groundswell coming out of Austin for that one in particular.
Probably.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really great to see. I mean, in the whole psychedelic realm, but also this is probably going to lend itself to the legalization of drugs in general, or at least the decriminalization of, to stop the ridiculous incarceration of people for using drugs, which is, we've talked a lot about lately. But I do want to say that for anybody listening, that sounds like that maybe your experience with psychedelics is not that great, or you don't have any, and so because of that, you might feel like, oh, this sounds like it's happening really fast and blah, 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 blah. If you read just the first couple chapters of Michael Pollan's book, you'll realize this is 20 plus years in the making. Well, this is actually like 70 years in the making.
Oh yeah.
There was a huge blackout period from like the 70s until the year, I think it was like 2002 or 2003. But basically around 2002, the research got revived, and it's been like a 20-year process since then that this whole idea of psychedelics as therapeutics for various conditions
and people also might not
swelling.
realize, but like when Albert Hoffman synthesized LSD 25 for the first time, Sandoz, the pharmaceutical company that made it, for a number of years were giving out massive quantities of LSD for free to doctors and psychologists to study the use of this. This was back in the 40s. It was like the same year that they discovered the atom bomb. Albert Hoffman accidentally dosed himself with LSD, and that's how it came.
I mean,
to be.
dude, Michael Pollan's book, read Michael Pollan, read How to Change Your Mind. It's incredible. It gives you an incredible history of the whole.
Even like I think of so it was drilled into me as like a kid that psychedelics and drugs were bad.
Yeah,
right.
Drugs
I mean,
as like one
like
single
drugs.
This
in
is
general,
your
right?
brain on drugs.
Yeah.
And
this is a guy just fucking making scrambled eggs.
But the point is that I think like my mind has changed over time, and like as I've based on a number of different personal experiences and hearing other people's stories. But one, like Taylor, you mentioned that we've had quite a few conversations about this as of late. Like the episode that we released this week, Mom Stop the Harm. That conversation, it's like sometimes you think something would be counterintuitive to the way that you would typically respond to a situation, but it actually yields a better outcome in the end. And like the decriminalization of drugs in particular, to some people seems counterintuitive. They're like, drugs are bad. We should, lock up people so that we keep drugs off the streets. But the research shows that doesn't work.
I mean,
and I mean, among other like hundreds of other reasons too. But the thing is that like, if you feel that way, and if like the idea of legalizing these drugs makes you feel uncomfortable, then you should look into some of these things a little bit more. You should educate yourself.
Yeah,
because
it's like for years I hated Bruce Springsteen. And I just think Bruce Springsteen sucks. And then I was camping the other day,
until you realize that he's been trolling America.
I was camping the other day, and a guy that was there, Keegan, was like, "Can you play an album called Nebraska, and I was like, yeah, sure. And I looked it up, and I was like, oh, fuck, it's fucking Bruce. And so I put it on.
What's his nickname? The
boss.
The boss.
I put on the album, and it was one of the best albums I had listened to in a long time. And so I changed my mind about how I felt about Bruce Springsteen. Still think the E Street Band can suck it, but that album, Nebraska, it's pretty fucking great.
Well,
and I feel like there's kind of a similarity here in that there's someone out there who just thinks that psychedelics suck until you put that one perfect psychedelic on. Maybe it's a tab of LSD, and you go, oh, this is pretty great.
And the mentality, like I was sitting around, I did a ride last night with a group of buddies, and we went to get some beers afterwards, and we ended up on the topic of smoking weed and doing mushrooms and stuff, and when your default assumption for doing something like mushrooms or LSD is like to have fun,
yes,
or to like do it like at a party or something like that, when that's your default assumption for what that's supposed to be, how it's supposed to be done, then it does take that like, oh, I don't know, and like I'm not sure if I want to do it, or I did it and it wasn't great, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense, because
it's very similar to weed. It's like when weed got legalized, like, I don't know, like usually back in the day when I was in high school, I was smoking weed. I was smoking weed to get fucked up, and like to fucking put on like weird, like sit around a basement with a bunch of fucking gnarly dudes from Sackville and like put on Pink Floyd, fucking like
ew.
But when you approach it in a context,
but now
of,
today it's like, oh fuck, man, I gotta like,
but
there's gotta relax,
an intention,
so I eat a couple edibles, and
something that you want to, something that you'd like to accomplish, or maybe not something specific, but something that you're just going like, I wonder like what will come up,
or like a reset. It's just like a way to reset,
but
as opposed to like a way to get fucked.
But
up.
even like, I mean, recreational use is one thing too, and even like recreational use with intent is another thing. But like, think about was it Tom, the guy that we had on that was the first person who legally did psilocybin for PTSD treatment in Canada. Like his story
wild
is incredible. And like, not to give the entire revisit the entire story, but like Cole's notes, he had incredibly intense anxiety and did this guided psilocybin trip with a doctor around, and
with a massive dose,
and that anxiety went away.
I mean, I don't mind talking about it, but in terms of like therapeutic use for people with like mental health things and a number of different like existential crises and stuff, I mean, to me, as far as I'm concerned, with what I've seen, that's like settled science.
Oh yeah.
And now we were like, and now I think, at least me and everybody else out there, maybe who's not as far down that rabbit hole, you need to concentrate on the therapeutic uses. Yeah. But for me, I'm moved on to like the like personal, the like personal use for self-development, like outside,
like therapy, like going to therapy,
like outside of needing it for a treatment, like a diagnosis, like a clinical treatment.
Over the last like, I don't know, couple of weeks of Feel Good Friday, we've been touching on conjoined twins and
the real twins.
And this is an article that someone had told me about. I forget, I wish I could remember who, but it's a story. It's an old story back from 2002. And it was a story of two conjoined twins, Mary and Jodie. The twin daughters of the Maltese couple Michelangelo and Rena Attard, known to the British public as Mary and Jodie, were joined at the pelvis.
Is Malta a British Spanish island?
Yes. I don't know if it's British, but it is. It is Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah, but
some of those islands are. Just islands are like are.
It might be. I mean,
British.
the accent, the Maltese accent is very UK.
Can you do it?
I actually used to be able to, because my nieces are from Malta.
Malta is a country in Europe. It's an archipelago in the central Mediterranean between Sicily and the North African coast.
Oh, so
it's a very proper. Mummy, like it's like that kind of shit.
Okay.
Anyway, so the twin daughters of the Maltese couple, Michelangelo and Rena Attard, known as the British public as Mary and Jodie, were joined at the pelvis with a fused spine.
Whoa.
Although operations to separate other infants joined in such a manner have been relatively straightforward, doctors knew from before the girl's birth in October of 2000 that both babies could not survive. Mary, the smaller and weaker twin, was fatally compromised. Her lungs and heart were not properly formed, and her brain was primitive, although capable of sustaining life. If the operation had not taken place, both babies would have died. Quote, the only way Mary could have survived was by the link to her sister, who was acting as her life support machine.
Oh.
Neonatal surgeon Adrian Bianchi told Mary's inquest. Quote, over the previous 10 days, Jodie's heart had begun to show signs of strain, consequent to taking on two bodies. The doctors had little doubt about what had to be done, but the parents, devout Catholics who had come to Britain to consult leading specialists in conjoined twins, were not prepared to agree to the ending of Mary's life, even though it would be the saving of Jodie's. The case went to the High Court, which ordered that the separation should go ahead, and then quickly on the Court of Appeal, where the judges said they had been faced with an agonizing decision. In the end, they came down in favor of Jodie's right to life. Quote, Mary has always been fated for an early death, said the senior judge, Lord Justice Ward.
Oh, dude, that's
Quote,
a heavy ruling.
Though Mary has the right to life, she has little right to be alive. She is alive only because, to put it bluntly, but nonetheless accurately, she sucks the lifeblood of Jodie, and her parasitic living will soon be the cause of Jodie's ceasing to live.
Whoa, dude.
That's a hardcore statement.
That is intense.
Jodie is entitled to protest that Mary is killing her. The best interest of the twins is to give the chance of life to the child whose actually bodily condition is capable of accepting the chance of her advantage, even if she has to be at the cost of the sacrificing a life. Quote, I am left in no doubt at all that the scales come down heavily in Jodie's favor. The Catholic Church and other campaigners vigorously protested at the decision, but the parents decided not to take the case to the House of Lords. In a 20-hour operation, the bones and internal organs shared by the twins were separated, and neurosurgeons delicately divided the spinal cord. When the main blood vessel connecting Mary to Josie was severed, the weaker twin died. It was an incision the two surgeons, Alan Dixon and Mr. Bianchi, made together in silence, and, they said, with great respect. Jodie, whose real name, Gracie, was disclosed after the operation, is living with her parents in their native island of Gozo and is said to be doing well. Doctors said she should be able to lead a normal life and have children of her own. Rose, Mary's real name, is buried on the island.
Whoa.
Wild story,
Wow.
eh? Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Fuck. And wasn't it like something, like some crazy number, like only like 2 or 3% of conjoined twins actually live to be birthed?
Yes. Yeah. Right. Like after birth, there's like a very high percentage of them that die before like being able to grow. And
So wait, just to clarify. So the parents obviously didn't want to separate them,
yes,
but
Yeah.
Jodie, the one who was healthy, the
yes.
healthier one.
Yeah.
She would have probably had a shortened life.
She would have died.
if she wasn't separated from
Her
the
organs
Mary that
could
was-
not sustain 2 lives.
It was
Right.
they both die or one dies.
Right. So like I can understand that somebody with a different perspective would, not want to make that decision to end the life of,
I think it's
Of one of
pretty
them?
easy to see that from both sides. Yeah.
but the ending sounded like Jodie is now can live a full on normal life.
Yeah.
Like I'm surprised at how.
Well, I mean,
How-
it's different, but it's not that much different from like the abortion debate when it comes to like religious beliefs.
Mhm.
Like you have a baby that is, for example, bound to be to die within the first month of its existence after its birth.
Mhm.
And someone who holds a pretty staunch religious belief and doesn't believe in abortion is going to be like, well, that's a life, and that life needs to live as long as it can live, and we're not going to like abort the baby. Whereas like somebody who doesn't hold that value is looking at that going, that seems like
Yeah.
torture to me.
And
Like,
you
why
might
would
get-
we do that?
You might actually see both sides of that same argument play out in different ways in each way throughout different states that have that had the like trigger abortion bans that like when Roe v. Wade was struck down, then there was these like trigger laws that were like waiting in the wings to be enacted in at the state level to ban abortion. Where I don't quote me on this, but I believe that this is true. Whereas, and I don't know what states are which, but there'd be some states where it would say that if the life of the mother is in danger, then that basically negates the law, the abortion ban, and that they can perform an abortion to save the mother's life. But then in other states, that's not in effect, which is basically each side of that situation with the twins, where it's going. In one case, we think that we think that we should just let it be and like let God roll the dice, and they either both die or maybe there's a miracle and they both live, or one lives. Whereas the other one's like, well, let's take action because we know that we can save the life of the mother if we do an abortion.
Do you think that's how he does it?
God
rolls the dice.
I think so.
He just takes a bunch of dice, puts in a cup, and like Yahtzee.
He's actually in this, like,
not going to survive.
He's in like this like ethereal alleyway.
Yeah.
They're 12-sided dice.
The interesting. Do you guys see the Trevor Noah bit about when Roe v. Wade was struck down? How he was like, like he's like I can get behind the idea that the states should be able to choose. They're like. One state is red, one state's blue, and the red state they want to do it this way, and the blue state they want to do it this way.
That's fundamentally what the U.S.
And
is about.
he's like, that's a great idea. So, but what if we took it a little bit further? Like each city in those states might be different. Like you have like an Austin in Texas, and then you have like a Dallas. So, why don't we then let each city choose what their laws are? And then he's like, but then the neighborhoods are different. So why don't we take it another step further and take it down to the neighborhoods, and then why don't we take it one step further and then take it down to each house?
That doesn't really hold. That argument doesn't hold up because the reason that states can make that decision.
But that's the joke, Taylor. It's a joke. The joke is that if you keep following it down, it gets to the individual's choice.
Person's choice.
That's the fucking. That's the joke.
No, I understand. I get the joke part of it, but the reason that the state can make a law is because there's no overarching federal mandate. So that is what allows the state to make the law. So once the state has a law, the smaller governments underneath it can't make their own law about it.
Totally, but his point in the argument is that because the whole point that they were making, the whole point that they're making is that
I don't disagree.
The reason why Roe v. Wade was being struck down was because we should allow states to choose. They should allow them the opportunity to choose that. And then he's like, yes, okay, well then why don't we just let individuals choose? Yeah. Obviously there's no overarching federal law in that case. Yeah. But it would make a lot of sense in that case.
Let's move along to one of the best things I've ever seen. One of my favorite things is in the world is UFC. One of my favorite things in the world of UFC is post-fight interviews. Typically, they interview the winner of the fight, and oftentimes those interviews can always be one of several different things. It can be very boring, where the guy's like, "Yeah, it was great. I went in there, punched that guy, and
I want to thank God
and he
for
went out,
allowing me the opportunity.
Thanks God for rolling the dice on me this time, and I won the dice roll. God, thanks." Or they could be really like really intense, where a fighter like gets up there and just starts calling out another fighter, and it's like something out of the WWF. It's like really classic WWF. Or it can be something really hilarious, like Derek Lewis, one of my favorite heavyweight fighters. He comes out and he's like sweaty as shit. He just want to fight, and someone asks him a question like, "How you feeling?" He's like, "My balls is hot." Like it can go so many different ways.
He took his shorts off.
He took he's like, "Why are you taking your shorts off? My balls is hot." But this past Saturday, UFC over in London, Paddy The Baddy, the fucking Scouser from Liverpool, won his fight. Thank you, Paddy. You also won me some money. But after his fight, he actually gave a heart-wrenching post-fight interview. And the reason we're playing this here is because I think that Paddy raised a really good point, and he went through some trauma right before his fight, and what a fantastic use of a massive platform for someone who went through something so hard and he has a matter of 30 seconds to make a point, and he really made the most out of those 30 seconds. So check this out. Gives me shivers, man. He and that accent, like it's I love hearing him talk, but
it's also the platform too. It's like like going into the belly of the beast for this, like fighting that stigma of like men not being able to talk, like watching UFC, like the toughest, most badass guys fighting each other on the planet, and then you have somebody speaking about a message like that, like it's like that, it's so valuable.
That does, like, we can talk about the importance of that to an audience that is hardwired to go,
preaching to the choir.
You're preaching to the choir.
Him to go up there and say something like that to that audience,
millions of people who really do hold, subconscious or otherwise, that belief, not that belief, but that subconscious understanding or idea that they should bottle it up. I mean, he's talking to that audience.
He's spreading the message that, like,
to the people that need to hear
that, like,
it most.
Movember does such a they do tirelessly every single year to spread. We in November of last year, we did an episode, a live episode, virtual live show, and that was one of the big things that we talked about, was like men's suicide, and speaking to the notion of like preaching to the choir. Like, when you listen to that episode, in our social circle, it's very commonplace for us to like share our feelings and to be vulnerable and to be emotional with one another. But when you look at the stats, that's not the norm.
No,
that is not the common, the common outcome when it comes to men and their mental health and their ability to communicate. So, congrats, Paddy the Baddy, on your win, and congrats, Paddy the Baddy, on spreading such an important message.
The thing that I find so remarkable about, like, the reason that the fact that men don't talk about their mental health, and that there's this idea that if you aren't vulnerable, then you're somehow stronger. Like, objectively, it's harder to talk about tough things than not. So like, in fact, you're objectively stronger if you're able to talk about those things rather than shoving them down.
And this guy, on top of that, he'll choke you out. He's extra tough.
At the end of the day, I don't think it's you're right, but I don't think it's about them feeling that way themselves. It's about portraying to another.
Totally.
What they think another sees as strength rather than what they think or feel as strength.
This next article, oh man, this is some wild shit. And I feel like this warrants like a full episode on its own with perhaps like maybe someone like MAiD, Dasani, or somebody else that can come in and speak to us about this. But we've been talking about MAiD for years, and we've also talked about the problems with the way that MAiD, the technicalities of MAiD, and the sort of requirements for people signing up for MAiD, the challenges, the problems that lay within that, especially for folks coming from the disabled community. Well, this is a wild story coming out of Toronto. Toronto woman facing financial loss during COVID begins process for medically assisted death. So contracting COVID-19 radically changed Tracy Thompson's life. This is a bit of a long article, but it's highly important. It's been more than 2 years since the initial infection, but her symptoms still dictate her days, leaving her with heavy-weighted fatigue, robbing her of energy and her ability to work. Thompson, a Toronto resident in her 50s, says the enduring illness and lack of substantive financial support has led her to begin the process of applying for medical assistance and dying.
So she has long COVID.
Yes. A procedure that first became legal in Canada in 2016. She said, quote, MAiD is exclusively a financial consideration, she told CTV News. After 26 months of lost income since the onset of symptoms, no foreseeable ability to work, and an absence of support, Thompson said she expects to run out of money within about 5 months. Quote, my choices are basically to die slowly and painfully or quickly. Those are the options I have left, she said. In addition to severe fatigue, Thompson lists a number of symptoms she's developed from long COVID. She can no longer read books or text longer than a tweet. Her vision usually begins to blur around sunset. It's difficult for her to digest food. Her taste and smell has been altered. Some days the oxygen exchange in her lungs is compromised, making it difficult to breathe. Scars mark her heart from swelling she experienced from myocarditis. After a year after Thompson became ill, MAiD legislation was revised in Canada. So back in March of 2021. Before the revisions, only those whose natural death was reasonably foreseeable, otherwise known as Track 1 patients, were eligible to apply for MAiD. For instance, a patient with terminal illness. Now the legislation amended in March 2021 has seen the creation of a Track 2 patient. Now a Canadian enduring an intolerable and irreversible illness, disease, or disability who may not be near the natural end of their lives can qualify for assisted death as well. Now this statement, the Track 2 patient, is one of the things that a lot of disability advocates have been speaking out against because it makes MAiD a lot more accessible for people that just, that are living a life and aren't necessarily sick, but do not have the supports in the healthcare system that allow them to have a life that is quality of life is not very high.
And almost like lets Canada off the hook.
That's right. Yeah.
To go, you can do this instead of us fixing the problems
That's
that are
right.
creating your hardship in the first place.
The most recent Health Canada data shows that 7,595 Canadians chose MAiD in 2020, accounting for 2.5% of the country's deaths. This marks
How many? I heard the percentage, but how many deaths?
7,500, almost 7,600. This marks
In 1 year?
This marks a more than 34% increase over the previous year. Yeah. Wow. However, in 2020, only patients who had reasonably foreseeable deaths were eligible for MAiD. Since then, the potential pool of applicants has substantially grown. So that was when they just had Track 1 patients. Before Thompson contracted COVID-19, she worked as a chef in Toronto. Her job consisted of long hours crammed with quick decisions and physical exertion. Now, she says, deciding whether to stand up and fill a glass of water can bring her day to a standstill. Quote, from being able-bodied and employed to basically bedbound, I can't get up on average for 20 plus hours. I have very little capacity to expend the energy physically, mentally, and emotionally, so I try to stay home all the time. It's not that Thompson wants to die. In fact, she still treasures the little bursts of joy in her life. She said, quote, I'm happy to be alive. I still enjoy life. Birds chirping, small things that make my day are still pleasant to me. They're still enjoyable. I still enjoy my friends. There's a lot to enjoy in life, even if it's small. Yet, a world in which Thompson cannot access an income is not one that she thinks she'll survive. Quote, I don't relish the idea of suffering for months to come to the same conclusion. When support is not coming, things aren't going to change, she said. It seems irrational to put myself through that just to die in the end. Since Thompson's illness is not clearly outlined in the Ontario Disability Support Program eligibility, which currently grants a single applicant a maximum amount of $1,169 a month, she believes it could take years to qualify, something
Also,
that many Ontarians, who've applied for the program say is not uncommon. Even if Thompson did qualify, she says the whole sum of the monthly support would at best cover her rent.
At best.
She said that would be the entirety of my living budget, she said. So far, Thompson has sought one doctor's approval for MAiD and is waiting to hear back from a second specialist. To be considered, an applicant needs 2 independent doctors or nurse practitioners to confirm they meet the criteria. That goes alongside a written request for MAiD signed by the person who's applying for it. Once you've completed all 3 things, you're good to go.
Man, what a challenging thing for a doctor.
While Thompson is still working through the necessary steps, she's confident she'll get the approval. As best I know, I would meet the criteria. I am very ill. There is no treatment. There is no cure. You do not have to be terminally ill, she said. While Thompson is currently eligible for MAiD, there's a new cohort of Canadians who will be able to apply in a matter of months. Beginning on March 17th, 2023, applicants with a mental illness as their sole underlying medical condition will qualify for MAiD.
Wow.
Mitchell Tremblay has already penned his letter for consideration. At 17, he received a number of mental health diagnoses, including post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety, and a major depressive disorder. The following year, a couple days before his 18th birthday, his parents kicked him out of the house. Quote, my parents didn't believe any of it. If the help had been there, I would have had a completely different life. For nearly 15 years, Tremblay has been on ODSP, the support program. He said the approximate $1,000 was just enough to live on. With an incremental change since then, he said he's barely been able to survive. Quote, I'm basically living on the same amount since 2008, he said. I've gone homeless so many times I can't keep track. Looking back, Tremblay said that if he'd had the financial and emotional support even just 10 years ago, he could have had an absolutely different life.
Not to mention the current inflation rate in the country, too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Dr. Naheed Dasani, a Toronto palliative care doctor who we've had on the show a number of times in the past, and health equality leader at Kensington Health, said many people who are choosing to pursue MAiD following the recent revision are doing so to alleviate their suffering, but it can be difficult to dissect the root of the suffering, he says. Quote, one of the things that becomes very difficult to tease out is when suffering is related to the fact that people don't have housing or food, and how that is so difficult to separate from suffering related to a medical condition. My worry is that we are creating a situation where it's easier for people to choose death by MAiD than to choose to live well because society is not offering them adequate access to money, housing, food security, and social support. Lack of affordable housing and financial support do not alone qualify for a patient for assisted death, but Dr. Stephanie Green, a MAiD practitioner in Victoria, BC, said such complexities may contribute to a person's suffering. Quote, suffering is one of the elements required for eligibility for MAiD, so it's impossible to discount these issues when assessing someone, she said. As a MAiD practitioner, Green said it's part of her job to evaluate the issues contributing to a person's suffering and strive to seek out, inform, and make available the limited resources that do exist. Quote, our healthcare system is woefully inadequate in serving our population with these resources, Green said, but I do not think we can hold these patients hostage. There are circumstances where an assisted death is appropriate, said Dr. Harriet Van Spall, a physician in Hamilton, Ontario, involved in MAiD research. Quote, but when related to socioeconomic status, living conditions, loneliness, or control of symptoms that can be cared for, it's quite tragic for people to have to choose MAiD, she said. Van Spall said, part of the problem is that society has become transactional to the point where that we view some lives as more valuable than others. Quote, we have to be careful we don't apply laws that inadvertently help people terminate their lives because they don't feel valued or respected or that they belong, she said. As Thompson takes steps towards an assisted death, she says she's mindful of the way MAiD and access to assisted death intersects with marginalized groups in society. She said, quote, the government as a body is telling people that they're willing to assist them to death because they don't have enough money to live with dignity. That's a pretty clear signal to me that unless you are able-bodied enough or able-minded enough to work and produce profit, then you don't have any place here, Thompson said.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
Crazy.
It's fucking wild.
It's something that's like, you know, it's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if you have the ability in the presence of MAiD in the way that it is right now, you could, not that we will, but you could create a scenario where it becomes so prevalent to use the access to use access to MAiD that the advocacy that is necessary, the advocacy and the pain felt by the people that are not being supported, is not present to force the change, to change the circumstances that make them want to access MAiD,
which is horrible. Like that would be a horrible way to finally see change. Mm-hmm. You know, after having to witness thousands and thousands of people die.
What I think is it does. I think it diminishes the ability to change because because the people that, because again, this is just like one possible track, is that if it becomes really, really popular is not the right word, but you know what I mean, becomes really, really common to access MAiD under these circumstances, then the people that would otherwise be shouting from the rooftops that they need support are not there to tell the government that they need support.
Yes, because
they're using MAiD.
Yes, I see. Yeah. And the thing that I was thinking was that perhaps the amount of people that are suffering from the loss of their loved ones because of the lack of support will upcharge this revolt of like, what the fuck are we actually fucking doing here?
Yeah.
But the thing that I find so gross about this situation is the fact that, so this person who in the article who's choosing to go ahead with this, they're not being pressured to make that decision directly,
Mhm.
but the indirect pressures of it
Oh yeah.
make them believe that is the right
Yep,
decision for
That's
them.
right. Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
the fact that it's like, I know that the word gaslighting is kind of overused and a little bit gross, but like in this situation, it's like you're making that person believe that that is their best option because you're not giving them the resources. So like you're in it,
Yeah.
Mm.
like,
Gaslighting doesn't.
indirectly
It's a bit of a
convincing them that it is the right choice.
yeah.
I
Bit of a
mean,
weird word just from the perspective of like you are giving that person you are making that person to feel as if like personifying the government.
Yes. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I know the
But
government is
that
a
is-
collection of people. I understand that, but like,
This is, I mean, this just goes to show that like the conversation we had with Guy Standing the other day,
totally.
you know, it just it puts
While he
another
was
it
sitting.
puts another piece in place as to why, you know, something like a basic income is
Yeah.
could fundamentally change so many people's lives that to the degree of them deciding not to elect to have their lives taken by through like medical intervention. It's
Dude,
fucking crazy.
Also, by the way, just this is my personal opinion, hot take on the response that I got personally to the Guy Standing episode. I shared a clip on my personal Instagram.
Were people pissed that he
and-
was sitting?
Yeah. No,
Why
but
isn't this
I actually
motherfucker
I actually
standing?
got like 10 or 15 messages from people who are like, you know, fuck that guy and his ideas because
There's a lot.
inflation.
There's a
or
lot.
because
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
And based on the, you know, test, the
Mhm.
trials that they've done, like these people are just, you know, projecting their own opinions
Yeah.
on this without even doing any
Listening
of
to
their
the
own
or
research.
listening to the fucking episode.
And yeah, and
he
and
touched
so,
on inflation.
And so my frustration is like those people, their ideas of like that prevent something like a universal basic income to even be considered
Yeah.
are causing people like this to choose death
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
their
yeah.
own.
Because I'm also
Over life.
because I mean we had this conversation I think later that same day when we talked to Guy, but like I'm not going to sit here and say that I am 100% for universal basic income and I think that it is the be all end all and the fix for
shouldn't.
whatever because
I
it's
don't think you should.
because like who fucking knows? I mean that could have practical problems that we have not even begun to consider even at the most educated level of economists.
Only one way
But-
to find out.
But to have the response, and especially almost certainly from people that didn't listen,
Yeah.
of like
Entirely from
this
people
is,
who didn't
This
listen.
is my like gut reaction to hearing the words
Yeah.
universal basic
Yeah.
income. It's like you are not doing yourself.
Yeah.
If that's how you feel, and you created that stance
Yeah.
more than 6 months ago and haven't revisited it at all since you made that
Yeah.
decision, and that continues to be your reaction, you need to remind yourself that the world has since changed in time.
Yeah.
And you need to re-understand why you feel that way
Yeah.
or whether you should feel differently.
Because
it-
I like for years I hated Bruce Springsteen. And the other night I was camping and this guy was like, "Hey, can you put on an album called Nebraska?" And I looked at it and I was
wow.
like, "Oh fuck,
But-
I
I'm the
love
boss."
Nebraska.
But we
And I listened to it and it was one of the best albums
Oh my
I've listened
God.
to in a long
And you
time.
changed your mind.
So, you know, E Street Band, they can suck it. But Bruce Springsteen,
dude.
I've changed my
It
mind.
was
He's pretty
deja
good.
vu. But the thing is, when we spoke to that policymaker a long time ago about universal basic income, he said nobody could say I agree with universal basic income and that sentence be a fair statement because universal basic income will come in. You know, there's a million different ways you could cut it. There's a million different ways you could set it up, and so not all of those ways are going to yield. All of them are going to yield entirely different results. So it's about like we have to have more nuanced conversations about it
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than like fuck that idea.
The way
That's
that
dumb.
the way that universal health care is rolled out differently in different countries.
That's
And
right.
you see
Totally.
and you
Yeah.
see different results.
Right.
It's no different. I did want to say on the MAiD thing is that when MAiD first came to be in Canada, it really served this like really noble purpose.
Yes.
Mhm.
And because it was like people who are immediately
Yeah.
like suffering and no end, like there is no end other than a painful end
Yeah.
from a physical like disease, and now it's been expanded into this realm of and no, and to that first cohort of people, like nothing to be done, zero to be done. And now we've expanded it into this realm of nothing to be done now, but could be done if we really put our fucking heads down and try to figure out these problems.
Mm.
And now, but you can also do it now. And that is really sad.
Yeah.
That has to exist instead of the problem solving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Audrey Parker's version of MAiD has such a like warm spot in my
Yes.
heart.
Yeah.
You know, like I love that she was able to do that.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite episode we've ever recorded. And then but then you take it to where we're at today, and
There's a whole bunch of issues with it.
Interesting stuff. So maybe we'll touch on this in the coming weeks with our Wednesday episodes. And speaking of that, folks, thank you for listening. I had a what the health prepped here, but I got to go. I got to go get a tattoo. So I will carry that over to next week. And while you wait for next week's episode, if you want to support the podcast, you can listen on Mondays. Again, like I said, Wednesdays or every Friday here on YouTube or wherever you find podcasts. And if you want to support further, you can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or leave a rating on the Spotify mobile app. We would appreciate that. And of course, Discord popping off. We got lots of fun conversations happening over there. If you want to join the Discord, the link is in the show notes.
And we touched on a couple of different controversial things today, on the idea about the twins and the idea about MAiD and all those things. And we are not attached to our ideas. So if you disagree with us,
conjoined twins.
like conjoined twins. So if you disagree with us, we would like to know why. Letters at sickboypodcast.com. And if you want to be a guest on the show, you can go to sickboypodcast.com/contact.
And thanks, as always, to the folks who make the show happen. A huge shout out to Rich O'Coin for the theme music and Jeff Lonis, who is our manager. We love you guys so much.
That is it for this week.
I'm Brian.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jeremy, and this is Sick Boy.